Hi, everyone, and good evening. And thank you so much for making time to join this first ever webinar between Plant-Based Health Professionals UK and the UK Vegan Society. So happy that you could all join us. And we're really excited because obviously this month has been all about veganuary, with lots of you perhaps trying a plant-based diet during this month, or perhaps you're new to veganism, or maybe you're a long-time vegan who just wants a refresher of the top kind of nutrition principles. There was so much to pack into this webinar. So we've done a real kind of whistle-stop tour with Andrea taking 5 top myths on a vegan diet and myself tackling 5 myths. And then we're going to have a live Q&A for about 20 minutes, hopefully at the end. So do use the time to chat away using the chat, introduce yourselves, perhaps say how long you've been vegan for, or whether you are trying out a plant-based diet, just a little bit about yourself so everyone can kind of engage, and then use the Q&A function at the bottom to ask us your burning questions. So yeah, let's get into it. This is going to last for about an hour, and our talks are each kind of 20 minutes each, but we're each taking it in turns. So hopefully you can hear us clearly. I did go to the dentist this morning, so half of my face is quite numb. I do apologize, but hopefully you can all hear me clearly. So Andrea's controlling the slides for today. So should we kick off with the next slide, Andrea? So yes, here's a little bit about me for those of you who haven't seen me before on any webinars or presentations. My name is Rohini Bajekal. I'm a nutritionist and board-certified lifestyle medicine professional and an author as well, an author of this book, Living PCOS Free. And I'm also the communications lead at Plant-Based Health Professionals UK. And we are a small community interest group dedicated to promoting the health benefits, the health and sustainability benefits of a whole food plant-based diet. We want to help change our current healthcare system and get plant-based diets into the mainstream, and awareness of their use for the prevention, management, and treatment of so many common chronic diseases. I also have my own practice and have personally been vegan for over 15 years in total. And my entire family is vegan as well, so I'm in good company. And yeah, those are some of the resources that we have.
Sorry. Hi everyone, and thanks for that brilliant introduction, Rohini. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about me before we get started. So my name's Andrea Rymer. I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a registered dietitian since 2015. And then since graduating back then, I've worked in NHS settings, I've worked in food service settings within healthcare, and weight management. My specialist roles within those settings have been in adults with learning disabilities and weight management. And my current role is I'm a dietitian at the Vegan Society, and I also do another job alongside that in the NHS, which is working in childhood obesity services, which I'm very new to, so I just started that in November. And I've been vegan for, it will be 10 years this year. And then just to talk a little bit about what the Vegan Society does. So it's an educational charity and a membership organisation. And essentially what we aim to do is to end the use of animals as commodities. So obviously my role is within the nutrition service. So it's how can we do that without eating animals? How can we do that healthily? So yeah, sort of talking about nutritionally planned, well-planned vegan diets. That is essentially my role within the society.
Amazing. So as Andrea wonderfully touched on there, there's sort of those 3 core reasons really why we might want to eat more plants. And obviously many of you are here because you are ethical vegans, and obviously veganism is a lifestyle. It's far more than just what we put on our plates, but it's designed to kind of have the least harm as far as is possible and practicable to animals. So and that's one of the core reasons that many adopt this way of eating. The environmental factors are also driving many people, particularly many younger people, towards this lifestyle, as well as the health reasons as well. And as a health professional, as a nutritionist myself, I of course want people to care about their personal health as well as planetary health, and of course the health and well-being of all the animals and non-human companion animals that we share this planet with. But really for me, it's all of the above, and all of these are such powerful reasons to adopt a healthy vegan diet. We have a little summary on our website, and the Vegan Society also has a lot of information there. And when I first went vegan so many years ago, I always looked to the Vegan Society for their resources. So it's such an honor to partner with them today. But there's a lot of science, lots of evidence, lots of links if you want to learn more about why so many people are adopting a vegan lifestyle as well as a plant-based diet, which of course are slightly distinct in that way. Right, so let's get on to the myths. So we've got 10 really top myths today to tackle, and this one gives me great pleasure because it's been all over the headlines this month, making my life as a communications manager quite challenging. And you would think that vegans actually were the ones who invented ultra-processed food by the way that some of these media titles have carried on. But actually, we know that ultra-processed foods consist of about 57% of what we're eating in the UK. Teenagers, about 66% of their diet in the UK is ultra-processed food. And the definition of this is really food-like substances. So think of things like pastries, biscuits, sugary breakfast cereals, ready meals, takeaways. Some of these, a lot of these contain kind of ultra-processed foods or are ultra-processed foods. And there are different classifications of these. So you get like Nova 1, 2, 3, 4. There's different classifications or grades. And there's this idea that all ultra-processed food is inherently bad. And while that's true in many cases, I think that a lot of these foods we are over-consuming, these food-like substances, which also contain a lot of sugar, unhealthy fats, high in saturated fat, emulsifiers, and other additives, many of which we don't really know the long-term health impacts of. We know that they can potentially impact the gut microbiome negatively. And they certainly, from a food science perspective, might help with shelf life and taste, but they can really negatively impact health. Just because the food is ultra-processed, however, doesn't make it unhealthy. And it can all be part of a healthy, balanced, plant-based diet. We know that actually processing certain foods, like turning oats or soybeans into plant drinks, can make it easier to obtain certain nutrients like calcium, vitamin D, and B12 through fortification. Certainly today, when I couldn't really chew or eat anything after my dental appointment, a smoothie was made with an ultra-processed soy milk, made it certainly a lot more easier to meet my nutrient needs. And they also help meet protein and hydration needs. Even foods like tofu are classified as ultra-processed, for example. There are certain things you can do if you do want to get the most benefit from these foods, and that's choosing fortified plant milks. Most organic plant milks in the UK are not fortified, but choosing fortified plant milks without added sugar. And remember that it's not just all about nutrition, it's also going for ones that you enjoy. So maybe it's oat milk in a latte, but having soya milk in porridge, or pea milk and baking. So vary it up and consider the overall healthfulness of your overall dietary pattern rather than focusing myopically on the level of processing. Next. I think it's just loading.
Yeah, sorry.
So the next one that we're going to tackle is actually bone health. And that one, again, has been making headlines for a while now. We know that a lot of plant-based eaters and vegans are a bit worried about their bone health because of the way that some of these studies are reported. And it is something that we know that we want to be a bit more aware of if we are following a vegan diet. And we do need to be aware of those nutrients of focus. This is true really for everyone. Anyone who wants to follow a healthy lifestyle should have a basic understanding of nutrition. And remember that when it comes to bone health, it's not just about nutrition, it's a team effort. You want to look at your overall lifestyle. So making sure that you're avoiding being underweight, that can actually be quite harmful for bone health, but making sure that you're a healthy weight and adding strength training to your routine. So a couple of times a week minimum, even things like carrying the shopping home can make a big difference, but doing things like body weight exercises like lunges and planks can make a big difference. And making sure that you're meeting the calcium recommendations. In the UK, the RDA for adults is 700 milligrams a day. And that is easily achievable by including calcium-set tofu and fortified plant milks and yogurts in your day, a few servings per day. And that's particularly important at certain stages of life. So if you're breastfeeding, you're in the menopause, you've got osteoporosis, you might actually need a few more servings. But again, there's more information on the Vegan Society's website and Plant-Based Health Professionals website. And there are other sources of calcium as well, like low oxalate green veggies like rocket and bok choy and kale. But you do need quite a lot larger amount to meet the recommendations there. So we do recommend having those fortified foods. Nuts and seeds and beans are all sources as well. And you want to avoid calcium thieves. So having lots of salt, caffeine, and alcohol in the diet. We know that caffeine, for example, can impair calcium absorption. So if you know that you are prone to this, then trying to have your tea and coffee an hour or two outside of meal times. So the next myth is that soya is bad for you. And it still amazes me that in all these years, I still come across so many people that are so worried about soya. And I think that's because of some really poorly designed studies that were done a long time ago, as well as the efforts of the dairy lobby. Whereas actually we know that soya is an incredible food. It's sort of like a magic bean in terms of its nutrient profile, because it's rich in all 9 essential amino acids. It's rich in vitamins, minerals, fiber, healthy polyunsaturated fats and low unsaturated fats. And it's so versatile. You can add tofu to a stir fry, tempeh to a curry, edamame beans to a stew, and it's really wonderful. Soya milk in your porridge. And I always say vary it up, so you don't want to be having 20 portions of soya a day. Make sure that you get other varieties of beans and nuts and seeds in, but a couple of portions a day is shown to be healthy. And it all depends on your gender, your activity levels, your age. But soya has an anti-estrogenic effect in breast tissue, for example, and certain other tissues of the body, whereas in bones, it has a pro-estrogenic effect, meaning that it improves bone strength. It does not act in the same way as mammalian estrogen that is found in cow's milk, for example. So a lot of those myths and fear-mongering is because the confusion is there between phytoestrogens or plant estrogens found in soya and mammalian estrogen, whereas they actually are two really distinct things. And if you were worried about estrogen, then obviously the thing you would want to not have is the cow's milk in the diet. We know that actually regular consumption of soya, like tofu, can help reduce breast cancer risk potentially, and certainly prostate cancer risk, especially when started in childhood and adolescence. And it's a really helpful addition to the diet. The majority of soya that's grown is genetically modified and used for animal feeds, and only 6% is used for human consumption. And it's not a hormone disruptor. It actually helps with fertility, it helps with PCOS, reduces hot flashes in the menopause, helps with male fertility as well. So it's a wonderful, helpful food. And please listen to evidence-based resources and major nutrition and dietetic organizations on this. Next. So this one comes up a lot. Vegan diets are restricted. And I can guarantee if you've been trying veganuary this month, you'll be told, oh, you're giving up so much. You must feel so restricted. What do you even eat? Just salad. And so often there's this idea that vegan diets are limiting, whereas actually we know that so many traditional and indigenous cultures around the world have prioritized plants for millennia, for centuries. And there are so many different cuisines to experiment with, which are rich in plant-based dishes, whether it's South Indian, like the culture that I'm from, or Lebanese or Vietnamese, West African. There's so many different foods out there to discover. Over 20,000 edible plant species. And if you are feeling restricted, then focus on what you can add into your diet first, rather than what you're replacing. Remember to replace that meat with the beans and lentils. Try out vegan fun foods. You don't need to feel restricted. You don't need to eat only whole foods 100% of the time to be a healthy, thriving vegan or make this lifestyle sustainable for you. And you don't also need to eliminate oil to be a healthy vegan. So if you do have a background of disordered eating, there is help, there is support from your GP, from Beat UK and other great charities. But remember, there is actually no proven link between eating disorders and veganism. And of course, the motivations that someone has is important, but there has so far not been any sort of link that's been definitively drawn between that. So yeah, please don't get concerned about that, and do seek help if you need it. And then lastly, my myth to cover is that vegan diets are too expensive. And again, they're positioned as a sort of elitist, exclusive thing, whereas we actually know that a study from Oxford University showed that a healthy vegan diet can be more affordable than a healthy omnivorous diet that includes meat and dairy. And you can adapt this. So things like cooking from scratch, using mostly whole foods can certainly make the diet more affordable. Using frozen fruit and veg, frozen blueberries actually contain higher amounts of anthocyanins or healthy antioxidants than fresh blueberries. So don't demonize frozen fruit and veg. Use pantry staples. Use things like a pressure cooker. You can get them for about £10 secondhand. I love an Instant Pot. And improve your cooking skills so that you can wow your friends and family. And remember that, yes, things like vegan cheeses and certain vegan meat alternatives can be pricier, but they can just be a small slice of your diet. As a vegan, you can thrive on all these whole foods, which are a lot more affordable. Unfortunately, in the UK, yes, eating a healthy diet is more expensive than eating a diet that's high in ultra-processed foods. But you don't need to eat a kind of a huge amount of those ultra-processed vegan foods, which are more expensive comparatively to the other ones. And then in terms of improving your cooking skills, Made in Hackney is a great resource for local community cookery classes, and obviously gives you a really great social outlet. They've also got great virtual options. And consider buying supermarket own brand plant milk, tofu. There's lots of different options now. Shopping at the end of the day, bulk buying, shopping at world food stores. There's lots of Facebook groups with handy tips as well. We have a great link to eating plant-based on a budget with a meal plan and guide in there on our website. And the Vegan Society also has some as well. So do check those out. Now over to Andrea.
Oh, thank you, Rohini. Yeah, the Vegan Society actually have a campaign called Live Vegan for Less, where you can sort of look at how you can eat vegan on a budget. So now, yeah, moving on to the next myth that I'll come across so often, far too often, is that vegan pregnancies are unsafe. And actually that's not true. So the British Dietetic Association support the message that plant-based diets can support healthy living at every age and life stage, and that includes pregnancy, breastfeeding, infancy, childhood. We know that iron deficiency is common in pregnancy. That's not exclusive to vegans. Iron deficiency is actually the most common deficiency in the world. And although we can meet our needs on a vegan diet, sometimes supplementation is required, vegan or not. And contributing factors to iron deficiency could be things like morning sickness, reduced appetite, nausea, cravings, and also in pregnancy, women get an increased blood volume, which means that we need more iron. We'll discuss iron-rich sources a little bit later on, so I won't go into much more detail there. What's also important in vegan pregnancy is to include a reliable source of vitamin B12. And we know that vitamin B12 is not made by plants. So the only reliable sources, proven reliable sources, are from fortified foods or supplementation, which is really essential on a vegan diet, because particularly in pregnancy, because B12 deficiency can result in some serious complications, including preeclampsia, neurotube defects. So yeah, really important that you're getting enough vitamin B12. Another nutrient to pay attention to in pregnancy is omega-3 fats, and that's because they're important for brain, nerve and eye development, which of course is really important during this life stage. And we can actually get enough omega-3 fats by eating foods rich in ALA, which stands for alpha linoleic acid, and they're short chain fatty acids, omega-3 fatty acids. And it's thought that if we eat enough ALA, that our bodies can convert that into the longer chain omega-3 fatty acids known as EPA and DHA. However, if that's something that if you feel that you can't eat enough ALA or can't get enough omega-3 from foods, then you can consider an algae-derived omega-3 supplement containing at least 300 milligrams of EPA and DHA. So those recommendations come from the European Food Safety Authority. Also, iodine needs increase in pregnancy. So it's recommended for all adults to have 140 micrograms of iodine. However, in pregnancy, that does increase to 250 micrograms. And that's because of its role in brain development. So again, really important for somebody that's growing a child. And supplementation is arguably the most reliable option to meet our iodine needs. Reason being is that not all plant milks are fortified with iodine, and even if you was having an iodine fortified plant milk, you'd have to have quite a lot to meet your needs in pregnancy. So it would be anything between 1.5 pints to 2 pints of milk a day. So yeah, it's just having that conscious effort, or supplementing. Folic acid supplementation is advised for anybody trying to conceive or within the first trimester of pregnancy. So that's not vegan specific again. And it's recommended for people to supplement 400 micrograms of folic acid. Calcium and vitamin D is also really important, just to keep your baby's bones strong. The needs don't particularly differ in pregnancy, but again, just an important consideration. And then I just wanted to mention at the end that the Vegan Society's Veg One, which is a supplement containing nutrients deserving attention. So often we always get the question like, oh, I'm pregnant, can I still continue taking Veg One? And it is safe during pregnancy. However, it sort of meets the nutritional needs if you wasn't pregnant. So you'd still have to supplement additional folic acid to meet your needs, and consider iodine, topping up your iodine intake either from fortified plant milk or from an additional supplement. So the second misconception that I come across often, is that supplementation is a weak point of a vegan diet. And again, it's simply not true in my opinion. So selective supplementation is important for many people, not just vegans. So I'm not sure why it's always considered a weakness when we talk about it in vegan diets, and it's not in other areas of life. So other people that might need to supplement, as we've mentioned, is in pregnancy, folic acid supplementation recommended for everybody. Infants and toddlers. So the Department of Health recommend that between the ages of 6 months and 5 years, children should be supplementing vitamins A, C, and D, which is known as the healthy start vitamins. And then anybody that lives in the Northern Hemisphere, where we don't get sunlight all year round, should be considering a vitamin D supplement. So, supplementation plays an important role in many people's lives, including vegans. And quite often, just from speaking to vegans and dealing with queries, it's really clear that vegans pay more attention to the nutrients deserving attention. So nutritional planning is quite key in vegan diets, and that's essentially because we're not getting that information from anywhere else, so we are looking a lot further into it. So it's not very common in public health guidance or anything. Vegan inclusive education is quite rare. So yeah, a lot of people are actually seeking out what the nutrient needs are on a vegan diet and making sure that they meet those. So on the other hand, there's nutrient shortfalls in every diet. So we know from the National Diet and Nutrition Survey, which is a rolling programme, that people aren't consuming enough fruit and vegetables. They're not meeting the oily fish recommendations to meet their omega-3 needs. So we know that there's shortfalls in every diet, and actually following plant-based diets could actually be beneficial to a lot of people, especially in the UK. What I thought was also quite important to mention is just that some animal feed is even supplemented. So while people make that argument that we need animal products to meet our B12 needs, actually animals such as sheep, ruminant animals such as sheep and cows, actually sort of synthesize B12 in the gut. But they rely on a mineral called cobalt, which is in the soil. However, because our soils are quite deficient nowadays, they're actually supplemented with cobalt, and a lot of the time iodine as well, because our soils are becoming more and more deficient of these minerals. So if the animal that you're getting the nutrients from is already being supplemented, then why would you supplementing it without the animals be considered a weakness? So that's kind of a bit of a debate there. And then also many of us actually rely on fortified foods for many nutrients. So that's obviously foods being manufactured with added nutrients. So our breakfast cereals. A lot of people actually meet their iron needs through fortified breakfast cereals, and in the UK it's mandatory to fortify flour with B vitamins and calcium, because it was thought, you know, that we need this to prevent deficiencies. So, you know, if the government are fortifying foods to meet nutrient needs within the population, it's not really any different to somebody taking a supplement. And then, yeah, a lot of the time we talk about, you know, that it's not natural to supplement. I mean, what is natural? We live so long because of our ability to adapt as part of human evolution. So, you know, we've come a long way from hunter-gatherer days where we was actually trying to survive. Now we're aiming to thrive, which is obviously we're paying more attention to nutrient needs and, you know, including selective supplementation within that. Another myth that I hear often is that vegans are iron deficient. Now, we do know that non-heme iron from plants is less bioavailable than heme iron from animals. However, repeated studies have shown that hemoglobin levels are no lower in vegetarians and vegans than in meat eaters, which shows that, you know, there's not a greater risk of iron deficiency anemia. And some studies actually show vegans have higher iron intakes than people following an omnivorous diet. There's also evidence that our body increases absorptive capacity when there's a higher demand for iron. So, you know, although non-heme iron is less bioavailable, our body actually sort of adapts when you're eating a plant-based diet long term to enhance that absorption. Sources of non-heme iron include tofu, lentils, beans, fortified cereal, kale, cashew nuts, pumpkin seeds, dried figs and apricots. And iron inhibitory factors known as phytates can actually be reduced by you know, pairing our foods, our iron-rich foods, with vitamin C-rich foods, so such as Brussels sprouts, cabbage, broccoli, bell peppers, citrus fruits, kiwi, orange juice and things like that. So, you know, as long as we sort of nutritionally plan and aim to have a source, and a lot of our plant proteins are actually rich in iron, as you can see there. So as long as we're sort of having a varied diet, which will include sources of vitamin C and iron, then that's helping to absorb that mineral. Soaking, fermenting and sprouting can also aid absorption of iron and other nutrients such as zinc. So actually, yeah, sprouting can help to enhance zinc absorption, as well as leavened bread, because it's thought that the leavening process can enhance the zinc absorption as well. So yeah, there's certain things that we can do to our foods to help that. And it's also important to avoid tea and coffee at meal time. So if you're a big tea drinker like me, trying to, you know, not drink tea with your meals, just because the tannins in the tea is actually another inhibitory factor. So just trying to, again, separate your having that window of like an hour before and an hour after meals, and even using cast iron cookware can optimize iron status, because it's thought that the small amount of iron in the cast iron pans can be transferred to the food during the cooking process. So yeah, another tip to enhance your iron absorption there. And then my final myth is athletes need animal protein. So we know that a balanced and varied diet is foundation of sports nutrition. Majority of your diet should come from carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are actually stored in your muscles as glycogen, which means that our main source of fuel should be coming from carbohydrates. And actually consuming protein and carbohydrates together enhances performance as well as recovery. So we know that a lot of our plant proteins are also, you know, a source of carbohydrate. You know, they contain a higher carbohydrate content than your animal proteins. So, you know, by including plant proteins in your diet, it's good for, you know, athletes. And actually the British Dietetic Association recommends for strength athletes to consume between 1.2 and 2 grams of protein per kilogram. So up to 2 grams of anything after that is thought to sort of just be futile. There's no need to you know, to eat more than you need, really. So for example, a strength athlete weighing 80 kilos could need up to 160 grams of protein a day. And that's important to to know that there are actually some of every essential amino acid in all plant proteins. So the key is just to eat a variety throughout the day, from whole grains, nuts, seeds, peas, beans, and lentils. And then for athletes, such as strength athletes, they might choose to include higher protein, denser protein options such as soya mince, tempeh, vegan corn, seitan, just because that provides more protein in a smaller package. Unlike animal proteins, plant foods also contain antioxidants, which can help to reduce muscle loss. So there's evidence there, that can support your athletic performance. And actually, many athletes who switch to a vegan diet share personal experiences of increased energy and reduced recovery time. So, we do have those observational studies on that as well. And then what's also important to note is that muscle protein synthesis is maximised through regular protein throughout the day, as opposed to large bolus doses. That was once thought, you had to have so much protein all in one go after you'd exercised. Actually, we now know that it's spreading it out throughout the day. And it's better to get that protein from foods rather than relying on things like protein powders, just because foods will have, a more varied nutrient profile, such as, fibre and antioxidants and those sorts of things. And then additional supplementation isn't routinely required for vegan athletes, although some might benefit from creatine supplementation. And the main benefit of creatine is just thought to be due to its effect on reducing fatigue during repeated short bursts of exercises. So, for example, sprinting or weightlifting. But that's more for, those competitive sports. It's not really necessary for everybody to supplement creatine. And then it's thought that the recommendations is to aim to get between 20 and 40 grams of protein per meal if you're training, but obviously that's dependent on training. So at least 20 grams per meal. And if that protein isn't lean, so for example, if it's high saturated fat, then it's broken down and excreted as nitrogen. And it's, there's still excess calories in having, too much. So if you're having animal proteins which are rich in fat, you're still having excess calories, and you might be jeopardizing other nutrients if you're over consuming protein. So again, just really important to state that you don't need as much protein as people think. As a nation, we actually over consume protein. And then I just wanted to sort of end that sort of the myths that we've gone through, just on how to spot misinformation. So when we're looking at evidence and what's reliable evidence, a lot of it will be graded evidence, so graded A to D, which basically obviously A is going to be the most reliable evidence, so it's supported by strong research design. B is supported by fair evidence, and then C will be supported by limited evidence or expert opinions. And then D will probably, more poor quality. So we want evidence that's sort of graded A to C at least. And it's very unusual to have A-graded evidence, to be honest. We also want to look at how was the study conducted, what was the demographic? So, is it applicable to everybody, or was it just a very short, small sample in a particular area, a particular time of year, etc.? So we always want to look at the how the studies was conducted. Is the evidence anecdotal, so from personal experience only? If somebody's talking about their personal journey or personal story, that's obviously going to be very individual and not applicable to everybody. Are there any conflicts of interest? So is the author selling products or supplements or anything like that? Other conflicts of interest could be that, I don't know, they're funded by a certain authority, so it's within their it's beneficial to them to prove a certain point. So it's always worth looking at that. Checking the register for credentials. So for example, in the UK, nutritionists will be registered under the Association for Nutrition, and dietitians will be registered within the Healthcare Professions Council, and you can usually just sort of look online and check whether the person is registered. So sometimes that's helpful just to to know whether they're using evidence-based, just an evidence-based that's reliable. And I think it's also important to be aware of bold claims such as clickbait. So sometimes you'll often see a title which just sounds ridiculous, and it's usually because it is. I've seen quite a few of them recently. One in particular about vegans and the aging process, which was, when you actually looked at the content, it was completely different to the title. So yeah, just be aware that if you see a very misleading headline, then just read the whole thing. And then I just also thought it was important to note that nutrition research tends to be on the low end of average, and that's because it's hard to control for confounding factors, such as in randomised controlled trials. So it's just always important to check whether several studies or sources are stating the same claim, because that's, even if the evidence base isn't great, it's deemed more reliable due to, if there's that consistent data from more than one study. Thank you. I'll hand you back over to Rohini now.
Sorry for doing that. I just could not, for some reason, I requested remote control and then it worked. But anyway, I'm sharing it from my side now.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Yeah, so we're just going to quickly wrap up and then have time for the Q&A. But I do want to end on this note. So I'm certified in lifestyle medicine, and it's really important to emphasize that whilst nutrition is definitely the cornerstone of a healthy lifestyle, we know that all these 6 pillars of lifestyle are key, and it's a team effort, as we've seen in so many things like bone health. It's not just the food we put on our plate, but it's also the lifestyle we lead. And vegans can and do still get sick and get chronic diseases and things. So it's important to look at things beyond just your diet and look at your overall lifestyle if you want to have a healthy lifestyle and you want to stay healthy for as long as possible. So when it comes to physical activity, we know that many of us in the UK are not meeting government recommendations. We want to try and get 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise. So that's exercise where you can talk but not necessarily sing. And you can also alternatively do 75 minutes of high intensity exercise. So it really depends on what you like. And obviously more tends to be better. So 300 minutes a week has even more benefits, but there is a tipping point. And obviously you've got to balance that out with other activities as well. That aerobic exercise or cardiovascular exercise, whether it's cycling, running, any swimming, all of those are great. And then strength training to really build that bone density, whether it's body weight exercises or lifting weights, really important, particularly as we get older. After the age of 30, we do lose lean muscle mass. And so making sure that we retain that muscle mass and build lean muscle can be one of the best ways to keep us strong and healthy. It also has cognitive benefits, mood lifting benefits. So find the exercise you enjoy. Anything is better than none. Avoid sitting for long periods. When it comes to sleep, having a regular sleep routine, so waking and sleeping at a similar time with 7 to 9 hours of restorative sleep. Obviously, this is easier said than done if you're caring for little children or you've got chronic health issues, but whatever it takes to try to prioritize sleep, try and do this. There's so many tips online for shift workers and other people who've got insomnia or sleep apnea or other issues, but don't ignore those issues because sleep is such an important pillar for health. And when it comes to stress reduction, obviously a lot has been talked about kind of obviously going vegan. And if you're vegan for ethical reasons, it can be particularly isolating. Sometimes you might be the only vegan in your friendship group or family or workplace, but there's lots of groups out there. I think social media has made it easier than ever before to connect. But there's also local activism and lots of other ways to manage your stress by forming social bonds. But you can also try other methods, whether it's mindfulness, breath work, psychotherapy, if it's accessible and affordable to you. The NHS has talking therapies, which you can self-refer to. Yoga can especially be beneficial for that mind-body connection, but it's just finding what works for you. What works for one person might not work for another. So you might find colouring in or doodling really joyful, or someone else might hate it. There are no health benefits of smoking or alcohol. With alcohol, there's absolutely no safe limit at all. And we know that it's something that is socially normalized, but I'm hoping lots of people are doing dry January and really thinking about the alcohol in a more mindful way. And if you do drink, just really remember to stay within limits. But yeah, there's no safe limit. Obviously, it's completely unsafe in pregnancy, and trying to swap out these substances for other things, whether it's sparkling water with lemon or a kombucha, or finding other methods of coping if you use these substances to deal with negative emotions. You can socialize in lots of ways that don't rely on alcohol consumption. And again, there's so many great tips online for that. And when it comes to positive social connections, I already touched on this briefly, but really try to prioritize time with your support network, family, friends, maybe things like a local book club, walking club, vegan groups. There's so many different ways, but this is really key, particularly since we know the COVID-19 pandemic isolated us all more than ever. And if there's one thing to take away from this talk, it's really to focus on color. So aim for 5 to 10 portions of fruit and veg. Obviously, the more the better, but build up portions slowly and go for what's accessible and available to you. But remember, canned, frozen, all of this counts. Choose water as your drink of choice. Obviously, tea and coffee, herbal teas, all of that is great. And your plate might look very different from these images on screen, but just trying to get more color in, whether it's a handful of berries on your porridge or extra serving of spinach in your curry, or adding a couple of pieces of fruit to your bag when you head off for work. All of that makes a massive difference. And just trying to get a little bit of diversity in, cans of mixed beans, going for handfuls of mixed nuts. If you always eat apples, try pears, just try and mix it up as much as you can. And just try and remember that it's not about what you're giving up, it's about all the things you're embracing. And I kind of want to end on that note, because so often when we talk about veganism, we talk about plant-based diets, the focus is on what you're cutting out, what you're excluding. But I always say to people, think about everything you could gain: more energy, more vitality, living in alignment with your values and principles, a kinder footprint on the earth. So just think about it in this more kind of positive mindset can really help identify your why and make it much easier to stick to nutrition and lifestyle changes. There are so many fantastic resources. Hopefully all of you can scan the QR code. If my face is blocking it, you can move me to the top end of the screen, but you could take your phone out and that goes straight to our 21-day challenge, or simply type in 21-day challenge plant-based health professionals. That was developed by registered dietitian Claire Lynch and other contributors, and it's fantastic and totally free of charge. And Dr. Shireen Kassam with her sister, they're both the founders of PBHP and Plant-Based Canada, respectively. I've done a fantastic book with hundreds and hundreds of references, but really accessible in a Q&A format. For example, do I need eggs to be healthy? How can I have a healthy vegan pregnancy? What is the evidence around plant-based diets and heart disease? So many questions that we won't have time to answer all of them today is in this book. And most importantly, our fact sheets. If you go to pbhp.uk/fact sheets, you'll get so many fact sheets. I think we have about 50, totally free of charge, everything from chronic kidney disease to celiac disease, to someone talked about a soya allergy. I've written a fact sheet about what to do if you're allergic to soya. So all of those fact sheets are free to download, and do share those widely. And we also run free CPD accredited webinars. I host them every single month. So do come along, do consider joining us as a member as well, because it's only £25 for the whole year if you're a member of the general public, and it helps support all the amazing work we do and advocacy work around healthy plant-based diets. And then this is from Andrea, so I will let her take over.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just trying to catch up on the Q&As. Yeah, so these are our resources, our website resources that we've spoken about. So well, the first one is actually the British Dietetic Association's resource on vegetarian, vegan and plant-based diets, and that's where you can sort of find the quote that says, that plant-based diet, 100% plant-based diets can support health needs of people of all life stages. So I thought it was important to just put that one in. The big site has got like a range of nutrition pages, including life stages, nutrient web pages and bone health resources. And you can find all of that at vegansociety.com/nutrition. Also, there's one about fueling an active lifestyle, which I know a lot of people are interested in, judging by the Q&As. So yeah, we've got some tips there on our website. Vegan on a Budget, Live Vegan for Less, as we've mentioned, and Vegan and Thriving is our more health-focused campaign, which has had a lot of nutritionists and dietitians working on in previous years, and actually this year it's very athletic focused, so there'll be a lot of information, blogs written by registered dietitians on there about how to meet your needs with an active lifestyle. So yeah, some really good resources there. And then we've got our socials at the bottom.
And some recommended reading as well, that you've included, Andrea, and some from me as well. Some of these we've mentioned the whole book session on our website, but I think you've also mentioned a couple of others, Andrea.
Yeah, so there's obviously there's a lot of vegan books out there now, so I just wanted to recommend ones that that I know, that I've sort of looked at myself and that I know are evidence-based. So one by Esmina Gavinji called Vegan Savvy, which is really handy infographic book, talking about nutrient bridges and a lot of the stuff that we talked about today, actually. So that's quite a handy guide. Veganhealth.org as well is a good website.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Lots of detail there for those who want to do all the science.
Yeah, it's quite comprehensive, yeah.
Everything we've mentioned is evidence-based. We've got references here. If you would like a copy of the slides, do mention it. I think we will send it out to everyone who's come along today. But yeah, that's it. We're going to get onto the Q&A because you have all got some burning questions. So I thought I would kick off with one and then you could take the next one if that's okay, Andrea. So one of the things that was mentioned was, I'm allergic to soya. How much green veg do I need to eat to get enough calcium? And hopefully you can see the answered questions there, but I put the link to a fact sheet that I wrote on 10 tips for what to do if you are allergic to soya. Now, it's important to remember that you can still get calcium from so many different sources, but you can also get it from calcium fortified pea milk, almond milk, oat milk, rice milk, hemp milk, whatever you like. Obviously, I do recommend ones like pea milk because they're slightly higher in protein, but you just go for the one that you enjoy and look for the fact that it's calcium fortified so you can easily meet your needs. And then even things like white beans, 200 grams, which is half a can of chickpeas, for example, has 100 milligrams of calcium. So that's a seventh of your recommended daily amount. And you can also, that all adds up from different sources. So for example, a serving or a cup of steamed broccoli will give you about 45 milligrams, 50 milligrams. So it all adds up if you're eating a variety of whole plant foods. Now, I do still recommend getting those calcium fortified plant drinks and yogurts in, because I do think that most of us might actually overestimate how much green veg we're actually eating. And particularly if you are older age or in menopause or whatever, then make sure that you're meeting those recommendations. You can use a simple app like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer for a couple of days just to see if you want. I don't recommend it for everyone. I don't recommend it if you've had a history of disordered eating, for example, but it is a useful tool if you just think, am I actually meeting my calcium recommendations? But for those who are worried, then calcium fortified plant drinks and yogurts and a variety of wholesome plant-based foods. Even oranges have a calcium in them and they have a decent amount. And for example, almonds, about a 30-gram serving of almonds, I think has about 100 milligrams of calcium in it. So it all adds up if you're getting just some of these foods in every day.
Thank you.
I'll hand over to Andrea to tackle one of the other questions that we've got.
Cool. So I've just scrolled up to the top, so I'll take, I believe it's in time order. So could you comment on what oils and fats are healthy for eating, cooking, as there's been so much conflicting information? Oh gosh, I can definitely agree. There's a lot of conflicting information on this subject. But yeah, so what we want, where we want our fats to come from is unsaturated fats. So actually saturated fats mainly do come from animal products anyway. There's not many in plant-based diets. Things like coconut oil, palm oil, shea oil, they're shea butter, sorry, they're all examples of saturated fats from plants, but they're not abundant in well-planned vegan diets. And yeah, so the small amount of fats that we should be aiming for are unsaturated fats, so things like olive oil, you know, nut oils, rapeseed oils, and actually, when we're talking about omega-3 fats, so those essential fats that we need from the diet, what I mentioned earlier, so those ones rich in alpha-linoleic acid would be things like, for example, chia seeds, hemp seeds, rapeseed oil, walnuts, and also ground linseed, which is also known as flaxseed. So they're like really important fats to meet your essential omega-3 needs. And it's recommended to have about a tablespoon of chia seeds or a tablespoon of ground linseed a day to meet your needs. And then there's some evidence that even two sources of that a day, you know, can make sure that you're getting enough ALA to meet your omega-3 needs. So they're the sorts of fats that I'd focus on. Other fats, obviously, so it's not just for omega-3 needs. Obviously, we do need fats in our diet, and we need those to absorb fat-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K. So yeah, small amounts of these fats are important, and other forms of unsaturated fats from food include things like nuts and seeds, as mentioned, olives, avocados. These are sort of your rich sources of unsaturated fats that, yeah, I'd recommend people include in their diets.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Andrea. There's a lot of scaremongering around seed oils and being seen as inflammatory. And of course, you know, we need to get that balance. And I think that the key thing to remember is that you don't need to cut out all oil to be a healthy vegan or follow a healthy plant-based diet. If you are trying to lose weight and you're struggling, then remember that oils are very, very calorie dense. It's 120 calories for a tablespoon of oil. So it can be helpful to go for more whole food sources of fat. And if that's something that is a concern to you, you can do things like, you know, sauteing in vegetable broth or water or other things. There's lots of methods, like even using an air fryer, which uses less oil, that you might want to try out. But even just slowly cutting down and definitely going for higher quality oils, but they can be quite expensive. Like good quality extra virgin olive oil can be quite expensive, for example, as well. So I definitely try and get my fats from more nuts and seeds and whole sources, because they contain those fiber, polyphenols, vitamins, minerals, lots of other really healthy, they come in a really healthy package. And in terms of the portion size, I would say, and again, it really depends on individual needs, but a serving is usually around 28 grams or an ounce, so it's sort of 30 grams, a couple of tablespoons. So if you're having porridge,
about a handful of nuts, isn't it?
yeah. So maybe for breakfast you'd have a tablespoon of ground flax and about 6 walnut halves. You don't need to measure it in that really specific, it's just eyeballing it. Yeah, that would be my tip. If you tend to overconsume nuts, or you find that you cannot stop eating them, then try to consume them with meal times. Add a handful of walnuts to your salad, for example, and try and make a balanced snack. So rather than only having nuts, then maybe have some fruit and a few nuts. You know, just make it a bit more balanced when you're thinking of your plate. That's
Yeah, and as well, like, you know, for iron needs as well, some nuts and seeds can be really rich sources of iron, as well as some dried fruit. So mixing nuts and dried fruit together, there you get one of your 5 a day. You get your wide range of nutrients from nuts, including iron and zinc, your healthy fats. Yeah, so it's making it a more balanced snack as well. So it's good to combine those things.
Totally, couldn't agree more. And so there were some questions about protein, and what does the latest research say about the need to combine methionine-rich foods with lysine-rich foods? Do you need to combine them in the same meal or just throughout the day?
Is that one for me?
Yes.
Yeah, so actually sort of the statement about combining foods to make complete proteins, it's quite out of date, really. We don't need to make a complete protein in one sitting. So as we said, just spread, as long as you're getting a variety of proteins throughout the day and spreading them throughout the day, you'll be getting all of those essential amino acids that you need. So lysine and methionine, which there used to be a lot of talk that they were quite low in vegan diets. So when we talk about those quality sources of protein, we are talking about those ones that have a good amino acid profile. So things like your peanuts, your pistachio nuts, your cashew nuts, your beans, your peas, your lentils, your tofu, your seitan, all of these will have really good amino acid profile, and you won't be sort of missing out on those essential amino acids, which was once thought that vegans did. So as long as you are getting a varied plant proteins throughout the day, there's really no need to be aiming to combine them. And actually methionine is there's even some grains that are actually rich with in that amino acid, so things like wild rice, quinoa, buckwheat, amaranth. So even adding, making sure that you're having a balanced plate as well with rich sources of carbohydrate that are also, quite good, useful protein sources as well. So yes, I think the key is just having a varied diet, really, which includes quality plant proteins in it.
Yeah, definitely. As you said, legumes tend to be quite high in lysine, so chickpeas and tofu and lentils and stuff. So you naturally find that foods around the world cultures have done this traditionally. So when you look at beans and rice in Costa Rica, or you look in India at rice and dal, or you look at black bean burritos, we do have this way of naturally doing this, and we tend to cycle through amino acids on a 48-hour basis. So again, don't exclude whole foods, don't cut out all grains. You don't need to do that. So it's just getting that in. And there's lots of questions again about protein. I think it's really focusing on the source and the quality of that, rather than just any protein goes. If you're suddenly increasing protein that's coming from animal-based sources, you might find that you're suddenly really increasing the amount of saturated fat in your diet, that your LDL cholesterol, your triglycerides and things, these markers go up. So look at those plant protein sources, because we know they help reduce mortality risk, that they come in this amazing package with fiber, with polyphenols, with vitamins, minerals. So they are not just protein. I think we shouldn't think of food in that reductionist way. They also contain so many other beneficial nutrients. That certainly, yes, we do have evidence that as we age, our protein needs are a bit higher. And if you're eating a very whole food diet, you might also not be absorbing as much from a small amount. So you've got to account for some of those losses through the stools and absorption and things. So I think at least 1.2 grams per kilogram. And if you're quite active, you're strength training, then as high as kind of 1.6 grams per kilogram. But just including good sources at every meal is a great way. So it could be soy milk and nuts in your breakfast, and it might be tofu and a stir fry, or beans and protein rich grains. Even potatoes have some protein. So a lot of foods do have protein in them, and those the best sources. We're about to launch a protein fact sheet, so that should help with some of those questions. Great. And there's a question about breakfast cereals. What are your thoughts on that, Andrea? What do you think of them as sort of food, and like that's a good food to include, or what are your thoughts on breakfast cereals?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult with breakfast cereals, isn't it? Because the marketing of them is, it can be so misleading. So even if it's got fibre in the title, for example, sometimes you look at it and it's still quite, contains quite a lot of sugar. So I think like being label savvy is really helpful when you're looking at breakfast cereals and seeing how much added sugar do they actually have. If sugar's sort of at the beginning of the ingredients list rather than towards the end, that it contains quite a significant amount, and you might want to choose something else. So wheat biscuits, porridge, even making your own granola. You can get, as long as you buying things that don't have added sugar, so you can get no added sugar granola. Sometimes it has honey, and so it's always worth looking out for that in the ingredients list. But I think keeping it as simple as possible is probably the best. So your porridge oats, or your ready break, which is just milled porridge oats, really, with
you can diversify
vitamins and minerals a lot of the time to your ready oats. So ready oats can be good, particularly for little ones, during the weaning stage as well. So I'd just say keeping it as simple as possible, and just getting label savvy, having a look at what's actually in the ingredients.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's you can add extra things if you want a bit of sweetness. Chop a banana on top, add a handful of raisins, and you'll often find that you save money as well doing that. And And certainly, yeah, things like ready bread for children can be good because they do have a richer source of iron. What I would say as well with grains is go for the ones that are more whole and intact. If you are particularly, struggling again with weight or appetite, or you get really hungry, then go for things like whole grain oats, or jumbo oats, steel cut oats, even oat groats. You can add in things like buckwheat, millet, spelt. Some of those might seem quite foreign to you, but actually in a lot of health food stores, and they will be heavily discounted because not many people are buying them. So you can also try and diversify grains that way, but just go for what's accessible. Again, keeping it to that no added sugar and other things, and adding in fruit yourself and things if you can. But yeah, it's that overall dietary pattern, isn't it? Maybe there's a cereal that you really enjoy and you want to have, and that's your thing that you want to enjoy at the weekend. So that's fine. You don't need to worry about every single food item or every meal. It's that totality of your dietary pattern that matters.
Definitely. And if you do prefer the sweeter cereal, then even having porridge with a spoonful of jam is probably likely going to have less sugar than some of the cereal that you buy in. So yeah, even if you just add in your own sweetener, it might be better than buying the already sweetened versions.
Totally, and that's true for things like yogurt as well. There's lots of fancy plant-based yogurts that are quite sweet, and also in terms of some of them are made with a lot of coconut oil or coconut milk. Coconut is one of the few plant-based foods that is quite high in saturated fat, and it's quite low in protein and some of the other nutrients as well. So it can be quite good to kind of swap for a soy yogurt or something else, and then add in your fruit or your jam or whatever you wanted to add in. But that's something that's worth bearing in mind, because some of the vegan cheeses can be 90% coconut oil by weight. So I do sometimes get questions from people and they say, oh, my LDL's actually gone up. And I said, have you been having a lot of vegan cheese? So again, getting most of your plate from whole plant foods, but again, all those foods can fit in. It's just the amount and the frequency. But
Yeah,
you've got to enjoy your meals as well. You've got to be able to sustain this lifestyle.
definitely. It's all about moderation. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining and sticking with us. And I am going to send out the slides by the end of the week to everyone, and just send out a link to that. So do join us for hopefully future events. Do look at the Vegan Society's resources. Do follow plant-based health professionals. And there's so much more information that we could have shared today. And this was just kind of a whistle-stop tour of everything. But thank you so much for the great questions and for being so engaging. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And then can I just say, I'm sorry if we haven't got around to all of your questions, but our nutrition@vegansociety.com, you can always, that inbox is always open to answer any queries that you might have about vegan diets and health and nutrition topics. And it's on the slides that Rohini will send out anyway if you did want to get in contact.
Absolutely. There's so many resources out there, so don't kind of struggle. I'm sure there's somewhere where you can get an answer to your question. And yeah, thanks again for joining us. So good night, everyone, and hope you have a great meal for dinner. If you haven't already had it, we're finishing at a nice early time.
Oh, thanks, everyone. Bye.